Connie. I am going to do my first official video today, and I wanted to talk about hypnobirthing. I am a hypnobirthing educator with the Leclaire method. There are quite a few different certifying organizations when it comes to hypnobirthing. I feel like it's kind of like how there are lots of different doula certifying organizations, and it's kind of like a Wild West when it comes to these kinds of certifications where it's not like a clinical certification that you need. Like as a labor and delivery nurse, you need a particular certification. You need to go to school for it. And like you have to have all these boxes checked off to like confirm that it's like your job and you are able to do it safely and you've met all these requirements. So it's not a job that is like necessarily mandated where, like with a midwife or labor and delivery nurse or a family practice doctor that does obstetrics or an OBGYN. Like when it comes to hypnobirthing, like it's the kind of thing where it's like midwives or doulas will like add that on as an additional certification, but it's there are a few options when it comes to gaining that certification. I chose the Leclaire method because I was able to do it from home, and it worked really well around my schedule as a doula, which is not much of a schedule because it's very spontaneous and babies come when they come. And so that was really appealing to me, which makes a lot of sense. So the hypnobirthing classes that I do, there are definitely people who teach them like face to face in like a formal class, like a formal class setting. But I choose to teach my hypnobirthing classes on Skype. I like that I feel like it's easier for people to, or not all people, but it's easier for many people to really be vulnerable in their own spaces. And for that reason, I really liked Skype. I also like that, in the evening, it's way harder to get out and like go to another space, like after eating dinner and after having worked all day. Maybe you have kids at home that, you're wanting a different birth experience. And so, you might have a little one at home that, it will be harder to figure out childcare if you had to leave the house and your partner had to leave the house. And so I wanted to make my hypnobirthing classes a little bit more easy to work out schedule-wise for people. And I have found that has been really helpful, both like for me and the families that I support. I feel like even for myself, like I used to teach childbirth education, and it's like leaving the house and having to drive home. Like it's a commitment that is harder to do, I think, or at least like if for me it was harder to do. And I find that teaching on Skype was a really great option that felt great for my teaching style, and also the families that I work with also seem to really like it a lot. So with the classes that I teach, I do a 6-series class, and we focus on something different every day. Or excuse me, not every day, but every time we meet. Like I teach on Monday nights from 7 to 9. And I really like that it kind of, especially if this isn't your first baby, I like that hypnobirthing allows you to have time with your babe frequently, where you're like really checking in and having good mind-body connection all the time. Not all the time, but at least daily. Or like whatever your schedule is for like meditation and practicing hypnobirthing, like that's time that you're making for that baby, and time that you're making for yourself. So I feel like it is kind of like built-in self-care too, which is really great. So I feel like when people ask what is hypnobirthing, it is, I think the name kind of throws people off a little bit. Like they think of hypnosis as like, I don't know, like you think of like the swirls in the eyes, and that you aren't fully present, and that you'll do whatever someone tells you to do, but really like that's not what hypnobirthing is. You are fully aware, you're fully present, but it's kind of like when you are driving a car and you're really focused on what you're doing, and you don't know, you'll like drive and you are super focused, but you might find like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like I felt like I was in a different place for a moment. Which like, you know, happens. And it doesn't mean that you weren't paying attention. That's self-hypnosis. Like you're so hyper focused on what you're doing and really present, and your brain just goes into a different place. But you're able to do your job really efficiently and still safely. But so with hypnobirthing, I think some people like assume that it's like just guided meditation, which there is a lot of guided meditation in it. Which a lot of people have that in what they do just on a day-to-day. Like a lot of people have meditation practice, or they use the Calm app or Headspace, or, you know, there's so many apps that are out now that help to make guided meditation really doable for people, and easy to do, or at least easy to have at their fingertips. Not necessarily like setting up a meditation schedule can be challenging. And so that's something that I do in my classes too, is setting up a time where it's doable within like what you're already doing in terms of meditation. That could be starting from square one. Like you don't necessarily have to have a meditation practice, but I think because it can feel like, oh, I didn't meditate today. Like, oh, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Like that can feel hard. And so that's the goal, is to like not feel that way. To just do it based on what you can do, to do it as like what you can do successfully and what you can feel successful in. So hypnobirthing, yes, it is guided meditation, but it also factors into the five senses during birth, and your five senses are heightened. You know, it is like an evolutionary like way to protect you during that time of laboring. And so for some people, they might feel very sensitive to smell as they're in labor, or they might be very sensitive to light and not want to, like I've seen people wear sunglasses as they're laboring, or I've seen them, you know, like it's very common for birthing rooms to be super dark, because the sensitivity to light is just, that can feel like a lot. And so, you know, your five senses, it does vary a bit in what you will feel most intensity during labor. But it's also, I think of hypnobirthing as it kind of retrains your way of thinking a little bit too. We're thinking from the intensity of labor, from pain, to switching that to pressure or just general like intensity. It doesn't necessarily have to be like negative. So I think it's just like reshaping how we talk about the sensations of labor, and therefore, you know, the way that we talk about the sensations of labor like really reshapes how we feel about them deep down. And by doing that, we also are kind of reshaping the physical process of birth too. From when people are afraid, it breaks down into like what the body does is it becomes more tense. And then when the body is more tense, then they experience more pain. And so that causes people to feel fear. And, you know, it's just like a triangle of a cycle that it makes the process challenging, you know? So I feel that hypnobirthing also teaches breaking that cycle. And so if you don't start off being fearful, then you're going to have a much smoother experience, and a less painful experience too. So I think sometimes people talk about like having a painless birth with hypnobirthing, which it's painless because we are not going into that triangle. of fear, tension, pain. But it's also like reshaping how we think about it. So we, instead of talking about contractions, we are talking about surges and rhythmic risings and pressure. And so even just like how we talk about it changes how, how we feel about it too. If you are wanting more information about hypnobirthing, or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk about it. I really feel like it is an option that people feel like might not be for them because it sounds kind of untraditional, but really it's like pretty straightforward in what is pretty common today and is becoming more mainstream with guided meditation and self-care practices. And I feel like when I think of like a traditional childbirth education class, it is really preparing you for like the physical experience of birth, but it doesn't really work through your mental and emotional preparation. And so I really try to focus on that too in hypnobirthing. And so you can take a traditional childbirth education class with, from an independent provider or Lamaze, or it could be from the hospital that you're planning on birthing at, or some home birth midwives have childbirth education classes that they do. And so I think of hypnobirthing as a great option to have in addition to a like straightforward physiological childbirth education. And I really feel like it is like a good way to prepare you emotionally and mentally for birth and for the postpartum, and to like have time during pregnancy also. I think it's really important. I teach my hypnobirthing classes usually at least like once a season, if not two, depending on what's going on in the year and all of those kinds of things. Like I don't teach class like over December because I find like a lot of people are traveling, or they just, there are lots of spiritual events for people during that time, whatever they might do like spiritually in practice or just like traditionally in their culture. So I don't teach during December because it is a hot time. And so I just try to be mindful of any holidays and stuff like that too. So you can feel free to look at my website for more information. I'm always trying to like switch things up on there and keep things updated as I'm adding new classes. And so my website is www.paxandlux.net. And I'll have a link for that in the description also that you can feel free to look into. And also feel free to follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube.